message. And before I go to Renaud and with the question of what the insurance world can contribute, I wanted to start first with Line. Is there anything you want to add from your perspective?
I think to the question of what, in a way, can we expect or what would we hope for from COP26, I think the financial industry, as Butch mentioned, actually can step forward and make a change during COP26 and also afterwards. The financial industry is seen as utterly crucial to financing that transformation which is needed in all industries in a way. And I am a P&C person. I took on the job as Chief Sustainability Officer of Allianz January 1st this year, but I've spent my whole career in the P&C business, started in 1994. And I was so proud when the discussion came up in December, should we establish the Net Zero Insurance Alliance in the footsteps of the Asset Owner Alliance. And the reason why I'm proud and glad is that I have children. Like Butch said, I have children and I hope to get grandchildren, and we can do something to safeguard this world they're going to live in. And based on the Asset Owner Alliance, which I then have been so fortunate to be part of and look thinking would be, because we're going to ensure that transformation. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Line. Obviously, the contribution from insurance, as both of you mentioned, is very clear. But I already feel a lot of personal energy and commitment to this topic, which is great to hear and see. Over to Renaud then. What do you think can the contribution be at the COP26 from the insurance industry?
Well, first, thank you, Thierry, for inviting me, and thank you to Swiss Re for hosting that event. I think it's very topical and very important, and sorry that I couldn't be in Rüschlikon with you physically in person today. You just mentioned, Thierry, that there's a lot of energy. I hope that's clean energy, flowing through our veins to support that COP26 agenda as insurers and reinsurers. I think that, what insurers can bring to the table is both an ability to act and an ability to be comprehensive. And I think this is exactly what we need when it comes to COP26. So let's start maybe with the comprehensiveness. I think that what we've been seeing, over the past 24 hours since COP opened is that we're moving in this right direction, but definitely not at the right pace and not with enough momentum. So we need to think and act bigger and faster. And that, brings memories of what happened, when we were fighting COVID, where there was a lot of cohesiveness, a lack of cohesiveness and consistency in the global efforts to fight the pandemics. And I mean, that could be seen in the lockdowns, that can be seen in the vaccine rollout as well. And I really do hope that we don't do the same mistake when it comes to climate change, which is by essence a global issue, which will only manage to succeed in fighting all together. Otherwise, it will be actually much less impactful. And here, when it comes to comprehensiveness, what insurers can bring is that they have a total approach to net zero through both sides of their balance sheet. So I won't be too technical here, but what I would just like to stress is that insurers obviously offer risk protection and risk management to their clients. And through that part of our business, which we call underwriting, i.e. the provision of protection and coverage, we can actually help our clients decarbonize their portfolios. And this is the commitment we are taking to the Net Zero Insurance Alliance, which is to have a transition of not only our own operations, but also our portfolios of customers, so that their own emissions are down to net zero by 2050. But obviously, we are also large-scale asset owners and asset investors, as was mentioned earlier. That's true for the Net Zero Asset Owner Alliance, but also for the Net Zero Asset Managers initiative, managing third-party money. And through that lever, I think we can definitely, be bold and make sure that we can squeeze the issue from both ends to have a greater impact, both through our underwriting portfolios and through our investment portfolios. I was thinking also of taking action. Taking action is really something that we need because, it's no longer about awareness. It's no longer about big headlines or communication. I would say it's even past, decisions, because decisions have been made already. Actually, in terms of decision making, you have all that it needs in the Paris Agreement. You don't need, to set further objectives or to decide on anything else. What we need to do now is really to roll up our sleeves, get our act together, walk the talk, and implement those trajectories to keep a chance to reach net zero by 2050. And taking action is something that insurers know how to do, because we are in the day-to-day business, working with our clients, helping them prevent losses, and that includes climate-related losses, helping them improve their risk profile, helping them actually improve their carbon footprint and their warming potential. So this is definitely the name of the game. What we have started to work on, you can expect a lot more contributions from the insurers, and we'll be showing the way, and very happy to do so during COP26.
Thank you, Renaud. Back to you, Butch. It feels a bit that still, despite the size that you mentioned, and Renaud mentioned it, the size of our industry and the contribution we have to our assets, for example, that we manage, it still feels we are a little bit the junior party at the table on the topic. So will that change? Question to you.
I hope it does. I think net zero, let's focus on net zero insurance, because I think that is the newest concept in net zero finance. I would argue that this alliance has changed, and in a broader extent, the Principles for Sustainable Insurance has changed the thinking about what insurance is all about. Before, the classic notion of insurance was that if you're insured, you're protected, that's good. Now it's being questioned, what are you insuring? Are you insuring assets that are damaging the environment? Are you insuring in a way that violates human rights? So the question of negative externalities that are affecting people and the planet are being questioned. So this has turned the issue on its head, meaning since insurance is so key in everything that we do in the economy and in our daily lives, how is it enabling or disabling things that are harming or things that are benefiting the environment and society? And I think that is the crux of the matter, why it took so long for this journey to take. Because we all know that adaptation and resilience is really important, but there's the other side of the agenda of insurance as an enabler of activities, and that we need to question. And this is not something in finance that was questioned before. It was questioned in the way investors invested, in the way banks finance, but not the way insurers insured. So I think this is the reason why it's just coming out right now, and we need to amplify this right now. Net zero insurance should not be the exception. It should be the norm. Everyone should be doing this. And that's the reason why COP26 is supposed to be the finance COP, because the whole agenda is to make sure that every professional financial decision, whether you're a lender, an investor, or an insurer, takes into account climate change and net zero in everything that you do. And so that's why I think we need to start repositioning what insurance and reinsurance is all about.
Thank you. Butch, we have mentioned the Net Zero Insurance Alliance already several times. So let me switch a little bit over to that topic and ask Renaud to explain to us what actually, again, just to remind you, Renaud is the chairman of this Net Zero Insurance Alliance, to explain to us what it is and how you expect it to contribute to this race to zero or net zero.
Sure. To net zero, indeed. Thank you for that, Thierry. So the Net Zero Insurance Alliance is about replicating on the underwriting side what has already been started on the investment side, i.e. pulling the levers that we have to make sure that we can support the decarbonization of the economy and the transition of our clients' emissions to net zero. So this is what we call our underwriting portfolio. It's a portfolio of clients, of insurers and reinsurers, because the 8 founding members of the Nzia include both insurers and reinsurers, making sure that we can support them in their transition to net zero. When I say support them, it's very important because, as most of you will know, from the onset, there has been a tendency to exclude some of the most carbon-heavy and carbon-intensive industries. These are what I would call the hopeless causes. But going forward, we realize that if we want to have impact at scale, it's very important that we also focus on, rather than being an exclusion machine, really focus on transitioning and helping our clients. Because otherwise, if you exclude somebody, it's just like exiting an investment. Somebody else can step up, and then you have a better conscience, but the planet is none the greener. So it's very important that from the inside, being in the tent with our clients, we can help them improve how they operate. And when I say how they operate, that includes obviously scope 1, scope 2, but also scope 3. And we want to have a very comprehensive approach to net zero. And practically, what we have devised is that it's wiser to start with a commercial lines business, starting with the larger corporates, because most often they would have, because of their size, a greater impact on climate change and global warming. So we want obviously to start with the field where we will have the better chance to make a material difference in terms of curbing global emissions, but also because all of these corporates have a greater ability to report on their current carbon footprint and to improve their disclosure. And that brings me to a very important topic, which is that there's only so much that insurers and reinsurers through the NZIE will be able to do going forward if we're not supported by a robust disclosure requirement framework. And that's very important. And it's very important that all stakeholders, including public policymakers and regulators, support that effort to make sure that we know what we're discussing, which is a prerequisite to be able to take action.
Fully agree, Renaud. Line, Allianz is one of the founding members of this alliance. What do you expect from it?
So I think from the alliance, but from the industry, in the insurance industry, where my heart is, in a way, I was born and bred in the P&C insurance industry. What we need to do, and the alliance, in a way, will push and support it, is that we of course do underwriting, and we do underwriting looking into, in a way, what's the probability of a claim and all of this, and we set a price, and then we deliver a product to the customer for property, for travel, for whatever products it is. What we need to do now is, like Renaud said, in a way, we need to take these industries and the clients, and then we need to start to discuss with them, in a way, their CO2 footprint, and we need to get that into the dialogue. And we then need to ensure the customers kind of need to transform their technologies, whatever it is, in a way, to get down to a lower than CO2 emission. That's kind of the whole fundament, in a way, for what we're going to do. And of course, the Alliance will support with a lot of thought leadership. It's called sector pathways, and it's ESG data, and it's CO2 data, and all of this. So the Alliance will, of course, be a strong contributor to that thought leadership. So I'm just observing it from the asset owner alliance side, in a way. Being part of it gives you access to the forefront, in a way, of what's going to shape the industry. Because I personally fundamentally believe that doing these things will also make your company more profitable down the road, in a way. You don't want to be the one with the stranded assets, in a way. You want to understand these transformation paths and take your positions correctly with your clients, supporting them. And my last comment to this would, of course, be that what we as P&C people, in a way, will see happening is a huge skill game coming up. It's a huge need to increase this competence into the whole organization. That's then making the products, doing the underwriting, doing the risk management in a way. And that's also, I think, something which will come out of the discussions over the next couple of years of the alliance. And that's that understanding of what type of further competences are needed to be built into P&C business then to deliver in the future. So fundamentally, I think in these discussions, that's the place to be in a way if you want to succeed in the future.
Thank you, Line. Pleased to hear that. So Butch, could you explain the process we're actually engaging on with this NZIA and how you actually how will this have an impact? And I assume there needs to be a lot of alignment between the companies.
Yes, I think impact is a really good word. I can already tell you, Terry, that what NZIA is not about. It's not about putting a thermometer in your insurance portfolio and saying it's 1.5 degrees and nothing happens in the real world. What has to happen is that whatever insurers do in managing their underwriting portfolios, it has to lead to emissions reductions in the real economy, in the way clients behave. Without that, it's an exercise in futility. It would be a monumental failure. So we need to make sure, because in essence, where insurance and finance goes emissions or emissions reductions. You want to direct insurance to that agenda. So the reason why we're doing that now in the NZIA, so what is the NZIA all about? It's about you as a company expressly committing that you will transition your book of business towards net zero emissions in order to drive down emissions in the real economy so that we can limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. That's one. The other thing that's really important that has to be said is that anyone can say, I'm net zero by 2050. What's different with this alliance is that aside from expressly committing to that net zero target and using low, no overshoot scenarios, meaning you won't kick the can down the road and emit everything right now and then suck everything out towards when you're in 2049. You want to have rapid, deep emission cuts right now because this is the most proven, scientifically proven route to get to net zero. So that's important. The second thing that makes the alliance different is that as a company, you need to set science-based targets every 5 years so that you have credibility. How is your journey going to net zero? How are you measuring yourself against that? Your interim targets. So take the case of the NZIA. By 2023, we should have a target setting protocol. You need Swiss Re, AXA, Allianz. You need to set your targets, first 5-year target. So you should have a 2028 target, and then you should report against that annually and publicly how you're progressing against your net zero targets. This is what we need for the rest of the industry, for the rest of the financial sector, the rest of the real economy to make net zero work.
Thank you, Butch. In communication, I learned that when you talk with the right hand, you really mean it, right? You want to, and that's very much how I see you set direction for us.
My left hand group is cuffed.
Yeah. Exactly. Thanks for that. Now, Renaud, just a bit more than a handful of companies have been founding members of this alliance. Obviously, we are very keen to grow this further. At some point, it should contain all of the insurance companies around the globe. Now, on this journey, what's the process to become a member of the NZIA?
Well, the process is actually very, very clear because, we have a statement of commitments that was released on the occasion of the G20 climate summit in Venice on the 11th of July. And this is actually what it takes to join the alliance. So as you mentioned earlier, we had a group of 8 like-minded founding members from both insurance and reinsurance, which all happen to be based in Europe, but with a global reach. And I think that it's good to see that, we've been a batch of we've had a batch of 5 new members joining the Nzia last month, and actually from all over the place. So we added members from Africa and from Asia, which we are very proud of and very happy with. And we have many people, banging on the door with which we are having an active dialogue, who are keen on joining. So stay tuned and expect some new announcements, on the risk career front. I would add that, as you may have seen last week, Lloyd's of London joined as well the alliance in their own capacity, because they are not, a risk carrier, committing their own balance sheet, but for the central fund, but which has a very limited size versus their total reach and the breadth of their operations. So we are expanding, and basically what it takes is to reach the bar which has been set high by the commitments we just discussed. So it's crystal clear. There's no I would say backdoor negotiation. There's no quid pro quo. It's very clear. It's clearly what I would say the world, and we discussed our children earlier, and I have children as well, so I can definitely relate to that. So it's what the world, the society at large, governments, but also increasingly, our clients, investors, NGOs, ask and expect from us. And if you want to deliver, please feel free to join, and we'll be even more numerous in terms of numbers in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you, Renaud. You mentioned clients, so let me turn actually our attention to our clients. And the way I would like to start is, Line, you could comment on maybe commercial clients. What does it mean? And then Renaud for private clients. But first, Line, what does this now all mean? What will it mean? You've heard, Butch, how important it is and the role we have to play not just in the industry, but beyond, right? How we want to influence that this race to net zero is really happening. Now, it will have an impact on our clients. Could you describe that, please?
Yeah, so we can draw on the example from the investment side and the asset owner alliance, where they have decided on the setup, and which is also the platform for the P&C side, which is we want to engage with the clients. And the principle is that we want to be science-based, and science has a view around what needs to happen per industry, steel, transportation, etc., to go down on CO2 emissions to be in line with 1.5 degrees. So this will be the fundament also for how we think on the P&C side in discussions with our commercial clients, and that is to discuss with them this added new element, and that is their plans to reduce CO2 to be in line with science, which is expected for their industry, for the country they are in, and all of this. And we will be a very happy insurance provider to companies that are on a good path of reducing CO2. So it's kind of as simple as that. But then, of course, it gets complicated, because I think there is still a lot of thought work that needs to be done to specify much more what this science means. It's about getting data in, and it's about also establishing that trust-based dialogue with the clients and the companies and the alliance and the industry. And then here again repeating, and that is my view, is that this will be a quite strong competence lifting game, a quite strong skills game that will be lifted into the P&C insurance industry to do this in a good way. But then my final comment here is why I am so proud and so happy also on behalf of the P&C side, is that the plan is we're gonna be a partner for our clients on the journey towards net zero, and ensuring what they need to do to get there.
Thanks for this, Line. Now, Renaud, as a private client, I admit one of my 2 cars is still non-electrical. It's as clean as possible, but it's non-electrical. So will AXA not insure me anymore tomorrow?
Well, AXA will make sure that you are incentivized actually into first driving responsibly, so you can have actually incentives to make sure that when there's an alternative option, for instance, to use the train, with like pay as you drive, mileage insurance, you would be incentivized in taking the train, making sure as well that, based on your driving pattern, which may have more or less, carbon emissions and through the exhaust, we modulate the rate to make sure that it reflects a responsible use and a responsible drive of the car. Then we will want to make sure, Thierry, that because if it's about just transition, you are not penalized because you cannot afford a second electric car. And I think this is a very important topic that I wanted to bring, which is that we have to face the reality of the huge cost that the energy transition will bear and will require. And it's very important that the burden does not fall predominantly on, low-income households. We have a greater dependency on ICE cars and a lower propensity to be able to switch to electric. So we need to make sure that in terms of public policy making, I'm sorry, because climate change is actually making me cough. There's pollution in Paris today. We can make sure that we can support everybody so that nobody is left behind. I mentioned it earlier in terms of comprehensiveness of our effort, which has to be global. Both the most advanced countries and the ones which are still in their industrialization phase. But the same goes for households, within our countries, within advanced economies. We need to make sure that we are as inclusive as possible.
Excellent, Renaud. So I have a challenge here, a question from somebody listening to this and wants you to continue to explain how you will incentivize me to actually take the train.
Well, I can see that you're really a car guy, Thierry. So it will take a lot to actually take you out of your driving seat and steering wheel. But you can have first a very simple solution, which is, as I mentioned, pay as you drive, which is that the more you drive, the higher the premium you pay. So you'll be incentivized, for some rides to take the train instead of taking the car. Then we can make sure that depending on I would say what we call in the auto industry, the well-to-wheel carbon intensity, which is not only focusing on the emissions within a city center ride, but also you're taking into account the environmental cost of building batteries, which some rare earths, down the road as well, the proper recycling and disposing of those batteries, which is an issue looming for all of us as the electric vehicles are gaining some traction and will have a greater mass of batteries to dispose of in the coming years and decades. And taking all of that into account, we would actually make sure that next time you have to change your car, you not only look at the discount provided by the dealer or the lease plan that is offered to you, but you also think, well, by the way, in the economic equation, I have to take into account insurance, because actually, if I take a greener car, I will have a lower running cost. So that, once again, that's going to be a transition. And this is why we're saying we're not going to tell you overnight to get rid of your ICE car. We're just saying, in terms of transition, next time you are shifting cars, we will try to nudge you and to skew your choice towards something that is environmentally healthier. But I can see that Allianz also has a plan for car insurance. So go ahead, Line.
No, if I may, Thierry, just give a comment to incentivization. And this is more because incentivization is also, of course, linked to the governments and the policymakers. And I'll just give you the example of Norway. I'm Norwegian. I'm sitting in Norway right now. I moved to Germany in 2013. Then the new sales of electrical hybrid cars in Norway was 2, 3, 4 something %. Then the government came out with massive incentivization, cutting taxes on electrical and hybrid cars, making crossing those toll roads and all of this for free, and also making parking much, much cheaper. The new sales of hybrid and electrical cars, the first half year this year, was 90%, of which the electrical cars was 56% or something. So incentivization works in a way, and when you're in Norway, it's electrical vehicles all over the place. And of course, a second comment to this is that this affects the whole infrastructure in the country, because you need to charge your car, and then you're going across the mountain. It's a lot of mountains here in a way. You need to plan for how to charge your cars and all of this. So it's a very strange dynamic happening around the country changing when you move around in the country based on the share of electrical vehicles then being so large, and incentivization works.
Thank you, Line. I'm halfway there.
Actually, so am I.
Butch, just because you have been in the insurance industry, I will ask you an insurance-related question. And so a question from the public is, concretely, as a property underwriter, how would you expect the single underwriter to approach sustainable insurance when they see a risk?
Yeah, so I think I'll just answer that in the context of net zero. So in the Net Zero Insurance Alliance, we have outlined different approaches that one can take. You can set underwriting criteria. The founding members of the Alliance all have a coal policy. That's not an illegitimate exercise. That is a valid approach if you have to take that, especially with the science at hand. And I'm raising my right hand, so it's true. Second, obviously, the engagement piece has been already outlined today. I wouldn't only, obviously, you would apply it both to commercial and personal lines of business. Then there's also the upside opportunity of insuring all the future risk pools that we need to insure. This is not simply tech. This is not simply new technologies and renewables or battery storage. This is also about nature-based solutions. How much pilot schemes have we have there about coral reefs, mangroves, and everything? They're all still pilot. What is the industry doing to really ramp up that agenda, also to sequester more carbon? So there's a lot of upside opportunities there that we need to really accelerate on. And then there's claims management. How can we contribute to a circular economy that can actually reduce emissions as well, in terms of whether it's motor car claims or property claims? How can we do that? And obviously your risk management criteria, whether it's your enterprise risk management or sustainability risk framework, are you incorporating net zero into your risk assessment? So there's many approaches that one could take to really bring net zero to life. And for some, it could apply to all. So there's a series of things there. I would add that I think what is happening right now is we are learning as we're going because of the urgency of the matter. This means that as insurers, it's not simply practicing what you preach. This is not simply an argument of being holier than thou in terms of your clients. You need to practice what you preach, and that would, for me, would be the #1 incentive for you, Thierry, to move, because credibility is important in this agenda. If you're preaching this to your clients, you need to practice what you preach. That's the last point I would say that's really important is that we are learning as we're going. So I would say that each insurer should invest a lot of time in upgrading the skill set of its employees, because this is this is quite novel. Climate change science is evolving. We need to impute that into everything that we do in the insurance business, and we need to have the right skill set for that. That's why I believe every professional, insurance professional, should have sustainability as a core skill set, because without that embedded, it's not going to work.
I agree. But thanks for that. I think there will be a lot of training required of our underwriters. They will have to understand, they will have to have clear measures given by the companies individually, so that they actually know what they have to look for, and this is going to evolve as we learn more from it. Now, because we're a hybrid event, I will turn to the room and see, even though I don't see the room that well, it's all in the dark, whether there's a question from the room. We still have 2 minutes to go. There's, I believe, one question over there. You can just take one, sorry for that. I hope the mic finds you.
Hi, Lisa Wolf from Group CFO Office. I wanted to know, how are we approaching reporting? So how do we make sure that it's meaningful, that the clients are actually reducing their CO2 footprint?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you, and I will turn it to Line.
Thank you very much, Thierry. Happy to take that one at the end here. No, but I think this is really one of the topics the Asset Owner Alliance is looking into, and one of the Net Zero Insurance Alliance is looking into, also the Asset Owner Alliance.
I was about to step in, Lina.
Yeah, sorry. No, so and one of the work streams is actually looking into matrices and measurements in a way, so we get those in line with science and with quality. And I know maybe you even should comment because you're much more updated. But it's a very good comment and very important. So over to you, Renaud.
No, but I think what makes it really challenging is that, speaking of net zero, it's really, pluses and minuses. Within these minuses, you have a hodgepodge of obviously offsets, but also absorption, of carbon for the long run, which matters much more than offset, and we don't want to be offset dependent. And it's a dynamic story because we want to look obviously at the starting point, what is already embedded into the trajectories, so to speak, happening in the coming years, but already in the bag because of past actions. And on that, there's not, one rule of observations. You can have many scenarios and many assumptions behind it. And then you have various sets of metrics. So I think what is really important is that we have convergence. One key principle that we have set out is to be science-based. And that's super important because otherwise, there can be a drift towards greenwashing or, let's face it, bullshit. So it's very important that, since the scientific community is super mobilized on that, we have a strong connection to that. So we are referring to science, and that really makes the NZIA stand out among other initiatives. And this is why we got accredited to the Race to Zero, and we are definitely the go-to institution in the space. So science-based is a very important thing. And then I would say, once again, global consistency in terms of standard reporting and disclosure, because it's already difficult enough, as a challenge, so as not to make our task more complicated by having different frameworks depending on the sector you belong to or the region of the world you operate in. So I think, and this will be part of the agenda as COP26, is make sure that we speak one common language globally in terms of disclosure.
Thank you, Renaud. And I think you did the call to action that I wanted to end with, but I couldn't say it better than you just said. I think, as Butch reminded us, it's time to act now, not to delay it any further. I really appreciate to hear that commitment from the two of you, but also from Butch, to continue to support us. So again, Line, Renaud and Butch, many, many thanks for joining us today on stage and virtually. Many thanks to everyone here in the room, but also everyone online. Please, on LinkedIn, continue the dialogue around this very, very important topic, and you will hear more about it. Many thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.